Hello, everyone. Great that to have you here for you to watch this video. I'm deeply grateful because we are on an ascension cycle where we have the opportunity to evolve our consciousness into higher levels of understanding and thinking, and to collectively put together an alternative to the current matrix system that exists on this planet. And it can be done, and it's going to be done. I know. Tonight, just let me create a backdrop and of where we are in terms of I've been speaking about collective intelligence and what that is all about. And I've said that collective intelligence is like a holism, where different parts can play a part in creating a greater whole. So the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts. And each part is important in creating that whole. And that gives a great power to something called a holism. And I've spoken about the universe as a holism, that holisms are fractals. So they operate at the macro level and they operate at the micro level. And that each cell in our body has the information stored within it of the whole. And this information is very important to understand, because you understand holograms. If you take a hologram and you cut it into two pieces, you'll have the whole hologram, the picture on both pieces of paper. So holograms retain the information of the whole, and each bit of the whole has all the information. Each part of the whole has all the information of the whole. I know that's very difficult to understand, but I can assure you that's good physics, it's good science, and that's how the universe works. And tonight, I wanted to share my experience of something called Ubuntu. In the Bantu languages in Africa, they call this consciousness that they hold Ubuntu. And it's very important in their culture, because anyone who was not of that consciousness was an enemy of the tribe. Now, Ubuntu, the literal meaning of Ubuntu means that I am because you are. And that is an acknowledgement that the individual gets its meaning, purpose, and direction, values from the other. And not from the other as in dependent on the other, but from agreement with the other, that we agree to uphold certain standards and values, and so we have a shared experience of life. And that this notion of Ubuntu carries all the, in my experience, it carries all the composite nature of holisms. Now, Ubuntu comes from a tribal African concept. And what it means is that in early African history and culture, there were there were fairly primitive agricultural societies that relied on growing their food and in raising cattle, goats, sheep, etc., for their tribe. And each tribe had a structure where the head of the tribe was a chief, and the chief generally was appointed as the son of the former chief. So it was a hierarchical heirloom system that could be challenged. For instance, if the son of a chief was thought not to be schooled and trained and mentored in the right way, or didn't have the qualities of chieftainship, he could be challenged by others. And this happens a lot in African culture. As we know, that there was a chief called Dingaan, and he was a very famous chief who lived in the northeastern parts of southern Africa, and he had a son called Shaka, who became the king of the Zulu tribe. But Shaka broke away from Dingaan because they didn't agree on certain things. So Dingaan agreed that Shaka could go on his way and create his own tribe, which he did. So this whole notion of Ubuntu carries with it a very important point with it, and that is service to others. And unfortunately, in our modern times, we often see service as being differential. We don't see it as an important element in the whole scheme of things. And it was very important in African cultures for people to serve the whole, the tribe. It was important for a man to serve his family, for a woman to serve her family, for the children to grow up to be of service to the tribe and to the chief. So service was a very important part of their culture. And unfortunately, in the West, the service is not considered important to the holism. Service is considered something that you have to do in order to earn money. And so we become slaves to something called money instead of being in service to the tribe, our natural families, our communities, our societies, our culture, our religious services. Everyone seems to be only in service of money. And so this drives people away into more of an individual type of governance structure, where we have to create false governments, where we elect people in something called democracy, which is not really, doesn't serve the whole at all. The whole notion of democracy is an enigma in my view, because any part of any system that doesn't serve the whole is not, natural and organic. And so we have politicians who don't serve the people who voted them into power. They serve in the government, and the government becomes the standard and the value, and the government's values are determined by economics, and economics is determined by money and the exchange of money. So we have a very distorted holism in our governance, and it is a holism and it's a copy. That's what the fallen angelics are very good at. They copy what is natural and organic and create something which is unnatural and inorganic. And they use this to serve themselves. And we're going to see as we progress in this ascension cycle that it's going to be more and more revealed how governments are clandestine criminal organizations, that many people in government use the system that they've elected to be in to further advance their own financial and societal and prestige, so that they can get ahead of the rest of the bunch who are the voters. Now, in my view, that is not a system that can work. It's simply going to result in corruption, where there's no accountability, or there's limited accountability. It creates all kinds of loopholes for the dystopian nature of the matrix in which we live. So we're in that period of the ascension cycle that I've called the Great Revelation. Now, my higher selves have explained to me what they are in the process of doing is restoring the Earth's soul template. Now, this may not make any sense to anybody, but I understand it. And in recreating the Earth's soul template, it goes through the stages of injecting and correcting certain of the Earth's chakras. We think of us as being the only ones who have chakras, but chakras are just part of all life force energy systems, where certain chakras have a harmonic frequency, and that harmonic frequency connects with other chakras in this holistic pattern of the universe into the whole, in creating the whole. So the earth chakras are being corrected, realigned, and activated. And so we're going to experience more of that. And we're in the process of the fifth chakra, which is the expression chakra, where it's the throat chakra. And the throat chakra is where we make the sounds, how we express ourselves in language and music and singing and so on. And words, we create words and sounds through our throat chakra. And what the beloveds are doing are restoring the earth's natural and organic expression. And in order to do that, they have to dismantle a lot of the inorganic and unnatural parts of the system here that are false and do not allow for natural and organic expression by humans and other forms of life, vegetation, minerals, fish, birds, animals, etc. So we're in that process, and more we're going to see this revelation coming out that our governments are corrupt. And so it's going to be necessary for us to look at more organic systems that work naturally and organically. And that's where I find the notion of Ubuntu very interesting, because the name Ubuntu means I am because you are, and therefore it recognizes that my own purpose in life, my own expression in life, my own attachment in life are as a result of you being in my life and my organism, my hologram. And that we are all interdependent on each other. And it's not just that humans are interdependent on each other, but the whole of nature is interdependent. You know, the sun warms the earth, the seas produce a gas called clouds, and the clouds then get blown by winds over the land, and then the land, it rains on the land, and that nourishes the plants and the vegetation. And, you know, fills our rivers, and the rivers are like an arterial system, the Earth's veins, as it were, arterial system. So we can see the fractal nature that the Earth is more of an organism than we think. Just like the human body has veins and arteries that flow through our bodies, the Earth also has a system of arterial connection by this cycle, this life cycle that is produced by the sun. And we are very dependent on the sun, on the warmth of the sun. So our dependencies are interdependent. They're not independent. So everything in the universe is connected to something else. And that's how holisms really work. Now, in Ubuntu, they have this service nature. And growing up as a little boy, as an infant, in fact, my first nanny was a black Sotho lady. And she was our domestic worker until I was 12 years old, just before my 13th birthday. And when I regressed and started recovering memory, my earliest memories of being incarnated here, I could remember her. And at that stage, when I did this exercise in about 2004, I could hardly remember anything about my life before the age of 7. So when I did this deliberate regression to try to remember, I remembered this lady, I remembered her name, and her name was Latia. And I've shared this with some of my family members, and they said, how the hell did you remember her name? Well, in a sense, she was my mother when I first incarnated here, because I was the youngest of 6 children, and my mom and dad were both, they both worked, and Latia was in charge, basically our housekeeper, my nanny. She cooked for us, and it was in service to us. And she served us very well, and particularly me, because I can remember being on her back with this Sotho woman would carry their children on their backs with a blanket and a big safety pin that I still remember to this day, how she would push me up onto her back, take the blanket, put it around her, and connect the safety pin, and I would sit in her back, and she would go about her daily chores, doing the housework and everything. And the interesting thing is, I actually can remember what she smells like. I could remember the smell of that blanket, because she lived in what is commonly called in South Africa in those days a kaya, which is just a room in the back of a household where domestic workers would do their cooking, your sleeping, living, and they had very little room really to move. So they would cook with coal or wood, burning stoves. And my particular nanny used to use paraffin, a little paraffin burner that she would cook her food on. And of course, the whole of her room would smell of that paraffin. So I could remember that smell on her back as she went about her chores. I remember her pushing we called them hoovers, the vacuum cleaners, up and down the room. I could remember her sweeping the floors. And so I had this little view on the back of this lady who would carry me everywhere. And then at lunchtime, she would make lunch for me, and I would eat what is commonly called papa, or pup. It's basically grits, the same that Americans would call grits, but it's a corn-based or mealy-based food. And we would take that with she would cook that. And then she would dip it into a sauce that she would make, and she called the sauce morojo. Now, morojo was a combination of herbs and flour and things she picked off the fields around the house. Often would include lettuce and cabbage and various herbs that you would find in the garden or in the fields around. And so I remember details like that. And I remember my first memory of her was as an infant. It was I remember lying in a pram and hearing sounds around me of people speaking, and then this kind of veil over the pram, and then this lady appeared with a bottle. This black lady with a big smile on her face, and she fed me. And so I had these crazy memories of this wonderful person who was, in a sense, my mother, in the way that she looked after me. And when we had to move when I was just about to turn 13, we had to move from the small town we were living in into the big city. And we left Latia behind to clean up and fix the house and so on after we left. And I remember looking back at her and seeing her face. And I could see the tears running down her face. And I couldn't understand that, because we were happy, we wanted to move. We were excited about this new city we were going to. And only later on did I really understand what it meant to her to lose a part of her family. And it was like I was born to her. But in the system of Ubuntu, when you are in service to another, it is because of the love that you have, not only for the other, but for the system. And they take, Africans take service very seriously. And they've often, in modern indoctrination, they called them the children of Ham, who would be hewers and servants, and and so they were kind of condemned, especially by our apartheid government here in the 60s and 70s, that the blacks didn't have any rights that whites should have because they were children of Ham. And that Ham doctrine was so prevalent in South Africa that it never sat well with me at all, because I recognized that I had experienced the power of Ubuntu, of being in service to others. And this whole, in our societies, everyone seems to be serving themselves only. And very few people can get the sense of the holism, that we are not only in service to ourselves, but we're in service to others as well. And when I say others, I don't only mean humans. I mean, we have to be in service to our gardens. We have to care for them. we're in service to, and what we put into our gardens, we get out of our gardens. And that's the principle of holism. What you put in is what you get back. And we're in service to our pets. We're in service to our communities. But everyone seems to have forgotten these principles. And so through these tapes, I'm really stretching the bounds of possibility here. But I do believe that if humans could get back to this notion of service to the whole, we would have a whole different society. And though I probably won't have many adherents to this congregation, I do feel that, it's the truth. And I really believe that the truth can change this world. And when we find this truth, that the universe is a whole, and it cannot be separated. And unfortunately, the indoctrination of many of the religions here is that man is separated from God because man is not good. Well, that's just not true, because I know innately and inherently most people are the most wonderful people on the planet. That everyone has this that I meet. I very seldom meet somebody that I can say, I'm not happy with this person. But I do meet them sometimes, the typical sociopaths and psychopaths that we find in our society. But I believe that psychopaths and sociopaths can be changed when people stop being psychopathic and sociopathic, and they start behaving in a way that serves the whole. Because in the universe, everything has a place and a purpose. Even the fallen angelics have a place and a purpose. Because they are here to buffet us, to provide trials of tribulation. They're here to challenge us, to challenge our consciousness, so that we begin to rediscover who we are, so that we can take back our place to where we were before the earth fell 26,000 years ago. And I think this notion of holism, when you can be that fractal, that small portion, and be whole within yourself, you can then increase the fractal. So you take the one little portion of your hand and take the first digit and you add it to the second digit and to the third digit and then to the knuckles. You've created a finger, a holism. And then you need another finger to come and do the same thing. And once you've got all those four fingers all connected, they become a hand. And the hand then becomes useful in service to each other. The hand is in service to the body. We eat, we put food to our mouths, we use our hands. Our hands create the things around us. Our hands open doors, our hands write, our hands type. They're very important to the whole. And you can say, well, I don't really need my hands. Well, I can tell you, every part of your body is important to the whole. And when we learn to respect the whole and respect each part of the whole, we can then recreate the whole as a holism. So I hope I'm going to end with that now, and I hope people begin to understand that. And because we're going to face a time very soon where the current system is collapsing. And when it collapses, what do we replace it with? And if we get the understanding of the notion of holisms, where everyone is welcome because they then become a part of something that is greater. One can't do it individually, but one can begin to create holisms, communities, families that work together, that serve each other, that serve the wider communities, that work cooperatively with each other. We can change the whole nature of this world. And perhaps we don't necessarily have to go back to a tribal system, but I think this devolution of power to the smallest fractal is very important in the future, going to be very important in the future. And that smallest portion is, of course, the family. And when we understand how important families are and how important our neighbors are to our family, because our family gets meaning from the fact that we have neighbors we can share with, we can observe, we can talk to, we can share things with, and we may get to a stage where our survival depends on this cooperative. The cooperative of society, the cooperative of a family. So there's always a way, and the way, in my view, is a recreation of the way things used to be. That is holisms. And I know I may be talking, to people who have no idea what I'm speaking about, but I do hope that people will begin to understand this concept, that their power comes from being part of the whole, and the whole will feed each part as the body does. The body feeds each part, it looks after each part of the body. That's called health. And when we realize that being of service to the whole will be in service to us and return to us that which we have put into for the service of the whole body. So I'm just going to leave you with that, contemplate that, and just tell you that I love you. So grateful for all of you. As I said, I am because you are. That I get my meaning in life because you exist. And I get my purpose in life because you exist. And so with that, good night and love you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much for your wisdom. It's amazing. It's just wonderful validation for the experiences that I have had, and I love to hear it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Love you all. Bye.